I have always wanted to be an entertainer, a magician, an actor, a musician, a DJ, artist, writer. Well, I got to be a DJ for a spell. I put on a show of magic in elementary, and I am an artist and a writer. And at this time, from a man who lived 7 years in the cold, 4 years on the street, I essentially have everything that a man could ask for, with the exception of a bestseller. I just wanted to make enough residual income so that my wife wouldn't have to work unless she wanted to. She has worked so hard in this day and age, and I would encourage her to follow her own dreams of writing and publishing, which she does in her free time, which is far and few between. Boy, as I said, at the present I have everything that a man could ask for, save for the aforementioned, and I worked for more than 30 years on my dream. So here I am today reading a story to the blind and maybe even the sighted, enough where I can only hope that folks are enjoying what I'm writing. My initial intention was to be an entertainer, where I could make people smile. So here we go. We finished chapters 2 through 4, so on to chapter 5 of my horror fantasy novel, Darkness Within. I do so hope you continue to enjoy my work. Deborah Buchanan was a registered nurse at Mercy Central, and a rather wealthy RN at that. In early June of 2008, Deborah Buchanan was hit by a car while crossing a street in Aldeburgh, not far from where she went to school. Following the accident, Deborah was in a coma for 21 days. She had fractured her skull, shattered her rib cage, punctured her lungs, and shattered her hip, which was replaced by metal and Teflon. The man who had hit her was a retired sergeant of the military who was experiencing the exciting fundamentals of a mental disorder, which in his case was schizoaffective. His lawyer explained that his client was hearing voices at the time of the accident, and then, according to the report, the sergeant saw a horror of tendrils and tentacles between him and the steering wheel, exploding to cover his face and head. It had been at night, it had been dark, and the man never saw the girl as she stepped onto the crosswalk. Deborah had actually felt sorry for the man, and pissed at the world that there was no one to truly blame for her condition, although it was said that she recovered remarkably. Yeah, remarkable. Deborah suspected that she wouldn't have the privilege to play sports ever again, and she would always have to have someone with her if she wanted to swim. Oh yeah, and she would always walk with a slight limp, which would grow increasingly worse as she grew older. Yeah, remarkable recovery. Still, it could have been worse. She could have been sent on a permanent vacation following the accident. But considering the condition of the world these days, she often argued that maybe the permanent vacation might not have been such a bad thing. At any rate, the verdict in, Deborah sued the sergeant's insurance company, which would in turn make the man's rate skyrocket if they didn't drop him completely. But there was little that Deborah could do about that. Bills had to be paid. The suit was for $1.5 million, half of which covered hospital expenses, which took almost a year to receive, and, sorry, Mr. Man, for your disorder, but I currently have one of my own. Who do we blame now, God? Such was life. Some of us are able to drive the highway, while others of us have to constantly wait to get into the stream of traffic. Pushing aside the memory to the best of her ability, Deborah installed the PlayStation, and as it was warming up with Skyrim, she decided to go grab herself a beer from one of the coolers. Shannon and Tyler were still in the kitchen putting things away. Thomas and Ian were in the living room watching football on a 60-inch HD TV, while the remaining girls were all in the pond illustrating the young teenager's wet dream or the next Sportsman Illustrated swimwear edition. So what was the problem with Ian and Thomas? As if hearing her thoughts, Ian turned to Deborah. Aren't you swimming? Maybe later, Deborah told him. I just want to hit a few more levels in Skyrim. Did you bring any two-player games? Sure. Racing and combat mostly. I have X-Force 3. Is that a combat game? Could be. What do you have in the way of combat? Mortal Fights 2 and Spider-Man 3. May I challenge you to a game of Mortal Fights this evening? You may, if Katsumi says it's alright. If Kat says it's alright, Deborah finished for him. Hey girl, I'm not pussy whipped here, Ian protested. It's not a matter of being pussy whipped. I don't want to get on Katsumi's bad side. And then before Ian could say anything more, Deborah turned to the couple in the kitchen. Could I get a beer? Sure can do, Tyler replied. Import or domestic? Import. Heineken it is. Sorting through the coolers, Tyler found a six-pack of Heineken. He grabbed 2 bottles. Then he reached into his pants pocket and took out his keys. He used the bottle opener on his keychain to open the first bottle, and then he removed the tool from the key ring and handed it to Deborah. For later, he said finally. Thank you, kind sir, Deborah acknowledged. Then she took her 2 beers back to her room, where the intro movie to Skyrim was still going strong. Brandon was dealing out hits of acid when Jesse showed up, seemingly materializing out of nowhere in the woods behind them. What's up, dudes? You scoping the chicks from a reticent vantage? Shame on you. What did he just say? Jason asked. I mean, I have no idea what he just said. Where does a jock come off having a vocabulary? You asked if we were scoping out the babes in the pond, Brandon affirmed. Nah, Jason replied offhandedly. We're just dropping acid, sucking down beer. No shit. Jesse's eyes widened, his voice raised a notch. No shit. Want a couple of hits? I've got 10. To be perfectly honest, I've never dropped acid before. No shit. In that case, maybe we should start you out with 1 hit. Is it dangerous? Only if you take it with a formicidal maniac, Jason admonished, looking up toward the sky. A what? Do we look like the kind of guys that would fuck with dangerous shit? You won't find me shooting heroin or smoking crack, Brandon explicated. A formicidal maniac? What in the hell is a formicidal maniac? Jesse wanted to know. Ah, come on, dude. Smart guy like you knows. Formicidal maniacs are the sort of psychos that like to chop people up into coleslaw and sprinkle them over their Wheaties. Oh, you mean homicidal maniac. Yes, that's what I said, formicidal maniac. Hey, Jess, back to Brandon. Do you want a trip or not? Sure, what the hell? Tina, Rain, Jennifer, Becky, Kim, and Katsumi were all in the pond, and when they weren't swimming, they were talking in the shallows, mostly about boys. With the exception of Rain and Becky, the girls stood in the shallow of the pond, which was 4 feet deep, just enough to keep heads and breasts above water. Rain and Becky were on long, luminescent rafts with cup holders. Becky straddled hers, while Rain lay on her breasts and belly. Owen designed the pond so that the shallows would incline almost immediately. That way, if someone dived in, they wouldn't have to worry about hitting their head on the shallows. The pond at its deepest point was 22 feet. Not that he expected anyone to be swimming down that deep, but he suspected that there would be those who would climb Gillian's height and jump down from the waterfall into the pond, and Owen didn't want anyone breaking a leg after hitting the water. So are you in love with him? Jennifer asked Tina. Not at this time, Tina admitted. Then with a sly smile she added, but that's subject to change. Right now it's more like lust, Kim suggested. Uh-huh, Jennifer replied agreeably. I see the way you look at Richard. Well, about the same way I look at Thomas and Jesse and Stephen, Tina countered with laughter. After a moment she added, Ryder does have nice eyes, though. That's not what you meant to say, and you know it. Okay, so I like his ass. He does have a really nice ass, Rain admitted. And he's got a great sense of humor. The girls burst out laughing. And he's an awesome game master. Kim added. Yeah, his campaigns are like so cool. I remember the last one we went through. Scared the hell out of me, Rain replied, and Rain didn't scare easily. It was so gothic, so eerie. Yeah, why wasn't he able to make it out this weekend? Becky asked. He had to work. That figures. Anyone want a beer? Katsumi suggested. There was a small cooler near the shoreline. I'm going to get a beer. You're not exempt from this conversation, Becky called to her. Yes, I am, Katsumi called back. I'll have a beer, Tina told Katsumi. And thus finishes Chapter 5. I hope you are enjoying my writing and come back for more. Thank you so much for your time.